Is my audio good? I forgot to test it once again. Give me a yes or give me a no. Yes. Thank goodness. Thank goodness. Once again, the host of this show is a moron. I wanted to do a late night show tonight and I did not go through everything that I needed to go through. Anyways, thanks everybody for joining us on a late night Monday show. Tonight's live show is what this YouTube channel was built for. This is the type of show and moment in time that I am built for. This is the time, the night, the channel in which you all peek around the corner college football sickles were built for. This is going to be a great example. This show, College Football's Peek Around the Corner, a national college football YouTube show. It's going to be an example of why we are the most unpopular college football YouTube channel in the country. Jeff Olson is in the house. A long time, very close friend of mine. He was with me when I broke the PJ Fleck story. He knew when we broke the USC story. Been doing this a long time. It does not mean, before we get on with it, it does not mean that here at College Football Peek Around the Corner that we are infallible. It doesn't mean what I'm about to say tonight is going to turn out to be 100% true. But College Football Peek Around the Corner, we're going to give it to you the way there is not going to be any hedging. If we are going to end up being wrong here at College Football Peek Around the Corner, which we were not with USC, Washington, Oregon, Colorado, Arizona, and all these other stories, but if we turn out to be wrong this time, we are going to take the big L. The big L. No question about it. I'm not going to hedge. I'm not going to flip every 2 months. I'm not going to say, well, there's not going to be, oh, wait, suddenly. No. This show is 100% authentic. What are we talking about tonight? We're only talking about one issue tonight. A very thoughtful discussion was had on Warchant. I apologize. I know one gentleman is Gene Williams. I do not know the other person. I've watched their show a few times over the last couple of years. I think that's Mr. Williams right here. A very thoughtful discussion on where they think Florida State is going to end up. Where are they going to end up, Florida State? And what I liked about this, they did a very good job. Now, that doesn't mean I agree with everything they said. I definitely do not. But I agreed with a lot of what they said. And it wasn't just a prediction that Mr. Gene Williams laid down, and I hope I'm getting his name correct. But he said there is buzz, that he's got information, that the Big Ten is instigating expansion, conference expansion with Florida State. That is the latest buzz. Warchant, which is an incredibly popular site. A lot of great Seminole fans. I have watched it at times. It was Jeff Cameron does an outstanding job, and I watched the last couple of seasons. You know, they're talking about how they got screwed in the playoffs and the last season wasn't so good, but it's a great site. They do a great job. I provided a link in the description box below the video on the episode that they had today. Where Warchant, where Mr. Williams says there is buzz, there is information that the Big Ten is instigating expansion talks with Florida State. This is the definition of instigating. To goad or urge forward, provoke, instigation. What does it mean if someone is instigating? To goad or urge forward, provoke, instigation. This is how Warchant described it multiple times on their episode today. And again, I provide a link in the description box. Go please watch it yourself. I think they did an outstanding job. Big Ten is instigating expansion talks with Florida State. A lot of you might be joining us for the very first time. Let me go back in time to make it clear at college football's peek around the corner how we think about Florida State's candidacy going in to a possible invite in one of the two Power 2 conferences. In June 15th, we did a live show, June 15th, 2024, where we had the Holy Smokes Theater, and we reported to you all that Petiti and Sankey left the theater, that they were not thinking expansion, and Florida State and Clemson were not the number one targets for either conference. I got raked over the coals everywhere. For days, for weeks, friend and foe alike. And then Brett McMurphy wrote a big article on it. A lot of people don't like what Brett McMurphy said. Although, we'll put that away for now. It isn't that Florida, I have said it at least 500 times on this show. Florida State and Clemson are the two most valuable football brands in the ACC, and they're going to get to where they need to get to. By hook or by crook, they're going to be successful because they're too valuable. But, and I'm going to say it again tonight, they are not the number one targets for the Big Ten Conference. That was true on June 15th, and it is true tonight. Instigating. And again, I know, look, people are going to say, you're taking shots again against Clemson and Florida State. No, I am telling you what college football peek around the corner believes to know. And it's okay. I'm going to get raked over the coals. Go ahead. That's fine. Give me a call. Put it in the comments. But again, we do not believe the Big Ten is instigating expansion talks with Florida State. March 24th. I reached out to everybody that I know. Just a quick hitter. Boom, 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 boom. I got some quick comebacks at me. No. Not happening. Too early if it's even going to happen. In fact, I got one person telling me 60 days and then maybe there's going to be possible series. There's nothing like that going on. And it wouldn't be with Florida State. Instigating. Remember, instigating. To goad or urge forward, provoke or instigation. Now, I have said this before and I'll say it again. And then we're going to go through the Warchant. What did they actually say on Warchant? I've said this over and over and over again. Florida State, the door isn't closed on Florida State going to the Big Ten. It isn't. I have said that so many times. But they're going to need the right blend. And it ain't going to be a Florida State-Clemson combo. But they're not the top domino pieces. It just isn't. I understand the incredible... Look, okay, this is what Warchant said. And I'm going to paraphrase it. And I think they nailed a lot of this. A lot. But they got some things wrong again. I shouldn't say again, but something that people kind of... Williams, Mr. Williams at Warchant, described
Say goodbye to the litter box and help.
Hold on a second. Williams described Florida State's media value as the top of the second tier. You got the first tier being Michigan, Alabama, Georgia. Florida State is at the top of the second tier of the most valuable brands out there when it comes to media value, and he is absolutely correct. They did a great job explaining that. Nobody can doubt the Florida State's media value, football brand value. Nobody can doubt that. That is not in question. Williams of Warchant believes, he's been told, I guess, that Florida State and the Big Ten have been talking. The Big Ten is instigating. The Big Ten is pursuing, in large part to this incredible media value that the Florida State presents. And they do. Mr. Williams goes on and says, it's Fox that wants Florida State. And it is Fox who is going to carry this. In other words, it isn't the presidents that vote on this anymore. It's the media partners of the Big Ten and the SEC. He said, it doesn't matter what Northwestern's president says. It only depends on what Fox says. He also said that not being AAU, and I agree with them on a certain part. He said, not being AAU, it doesn't matter anymore. None of that matters anymore. Look, Nebraska, he says, Nebraska's not AAU, so none of that matters anymore. Then Mr. Williams took a shot at Brett McMurphy. He said, Florida State has this incredible big brand value. Doesn't matter what Brett McMurphy says about him. Brett McMurphy never said, nobody, Heather Dinich, Pete Thamel, Dennis, nobody has ever reported that Florida State doesn't have this incredible football brand value. Nobody has said that. But here is the reality of what is there. This is so much more than just the football brand value. And I have come to just the acknowledgement of it all, that look, Mr. Williams was a whole lot smarter than I am. A lot of people in the chat room are a whole lot smarter than I am. I'm not the brightest bulb in the refrigerator. I just know where every refrigerator is in every building I walk into. But I have to come to an understanding that people are not going to get the Big Ten. They're just not going to get it. Ever. The Big Ten has added schools, even in the last 10 years, that are not football brands. They added Rutgers for a reason. They added Maryland for a reason. It was to become a 2-region conference, to get the cable boxes, to get the Eastern media to pay attention somewhat to the Big Ten Conference. A change in demographics. Big Ten alumni living in the states of Maryland, in New Jersey, in New York, and there's always other reasons when you add a school. Now, what is different about this, every realignment wave is a little bit different, at least a little bit different than the last one, and the one before, and the one before. You know the big difference in this realignment wave is? Everyone they're lighting their torches and they're marching and they're going on equal revenue sharing, on equal revenue sharing. Give more to the biggest brands, give less to the lower brands. You got every national reporter out there saying, yeah, that's what they're going to do in the Big Ten. That's what they're going to do in the SEC. That's what they just did in the ACC. Right? Even I have reported on that the Big Ten and the SEC, especially in the Big Ten, they've discussed this unequal revenue sharing. It ain't going to be radical like what just happened in ACC, but they've talked about it. They'll continue to discuss it. But when you're talking about the possible addition of a Florida State, because that's what we're talking about tonight. Because Warchant today reported, Mr. Williams reported that the Big Ten is instigating expansion, Big Ten expansion with Florida State. If you're going to bring on a Florida State, Warchant said today in their episode, that's going to bring more money into the Big Ten. Because look at Florida State's brand. They talked about it. They did a great job on Warchant. They talked about the economics of it all in the state of Florida, a fast-growing state, right? They talked about all this. It's all true. Except, how does adding Florida State, how does that benefit Northwestern? Even if you bring in more money, how does that satisfy Northwestern? How does that satisfy Purdue? How does that satisfy Rutgers, Maryland, Minnesota, Illinois? Go right down the list. Because in the past, when you added programs, universities to the conference, and you're adding value to the conference, and you're adding media value to the conference, everybody was going to prosper. Let me use Minnesota, for example. Minnesota is the one Big Ten school that has been for every Big Ten expansion in the history of the Big Ten. There were 4, Ohio State in 1919. Back in the early 1950s, Minnesota sponsored Michigan State. Michigan sponsored Pittsburgh, and it was a battle. And Minnesota barely won out, and Michigan State became a Big Ten member. In Minnesota was for Oregon and Washington. Minnesota was for that. Wisconsin was for that. Michigan was for that because of the blend. Because of the blend of Washington and Oregon. Oregon, a brand multiplier. Washington, a fierce, huge research universities. Yes, that does matter in the Big Ten. It was the correct blend. And that's what Florida State's going to need. Get back to that later. But Minnesota, so Minnesota is for all these expansions because it was going to elevate Minnesota. But if you're talking about unequal revenue sharing, if you're talking about everything that's going on in the ACC, how does it benefit Northwestern to vote for Florida State if Florida State's going to just make more than Northwestern? You know, with unequal revenue share, like Purdue, Rutgers. Is Northwestern still making more, or are they making the same, or they're making less? You got to start asking yourself this question. 5 years from now, in the next media rights, how does adding a Florida State or anybody else benefit a Northwestern and Purdue, a Minnesota? Because they are going to have a vote. Don't be pretending that the presidents don't have a vote. Okay, so that is different. If we're talking about unequal revenue sharing, if some programs, some universities are going to march into the SEC and the Big Ten and say, yeah, well, you know, we should make more than Mississippi State because we bring on a little bit more viewers. Oh, we should make more than Northwestern, who's been an original member. It just doesn't. I'm just letting you know. I'm being honest tonight, guys. I'm being honest. I'm being blunt. You got to get the votes. You got to get the votes. So no. I agree with a lot of what Warchant said tonight. Go watch that episode today. But when they took a shot, when they mocked Northwestern's president, it doesn't matter what he thinks. Geez, I hope Florida State's leadership doesn't. Okay, so here's the thing. I watched that episode. Again, I thought it was great. I thought it was very thoughtful discussions. I sent that video off to people that I know in the Big Ten, the people behind the curtain, BTM and his associates, and every answer I got back was, nah, this is not happening. It may in the future, but the Big Ten, college football's peek around the corner. We're not going to hedge. We are reporting tonight, March 24th. As clear as you can hear my voice, we are reporting that the Big Ten is not instigating any expansion talks with Florida State. Now, everybody in some way or fashion is talking with everybody else. There is no there's nothing inhibiting anybody from talking anymore. Well, I'm not even going to go down the differences between first party talks and third party talks. By the way, we were always accurate. We were always accurate when we reported to you that Clemson and SEC were not having first party talks. That Florida State and the SEC were not having first party talks. That Florida State and the Big Ten were not having. We were always accurate. If accuracy means anything to anybody anymore, we were always accurate. Florida State. So we don't believe there is no Big Ten is not having these conversations with Florida State on March 24th about an expansion where Florida State joins the Big Ten. That is not going on right now. I have been told in all different ways. A lot of it, nope. Not a chance. Thumbs down. All these ways. It ain't happening. Now, could it happen in the future? Yes. Yes, it could. The door is not shut on Florida State into the Big Ten. It's not. But there are bigger dominoes, not necessarily more valuable dominoes in the way we look at it, because Florida State has the biggest, baddest, most valuable brand in the ACC. But there are other things that need to happen first. Big Ten needs resolutions on many different items. The House versus ACC settlement, April 7th. They need to be able to pin down the college football playoff format, automatic qualifiers. Is it going to go to 16? When could it go to 16? Because that is going to affect the timing of the next realignment wave. All these things that got to get figured out. And then if you want to talk conference affiliation, and I know a lot of people are going to rake me over the coals once again, go ahead. That's what this show is for. But I'm being as clear as I possibly can be. The next hurdles after the ACC, after the House and NCAA and the college football playoff format and all that stuff, the next hurdle is North Carolina. And whatever they can do, whoever they bring with, and whoever can lure them in. It is Notre Dame and North Carolina. Notre Dame ain't going to act, and Notre Dame is its own separate island. But it is North Carolina. It is. And if you talk about North Carolina, and let's say Virginia, North Carolina, or Duke, whatever this North Carolina +1 is, it very well easily, it could be a North Carolina +3 for the SEC. It could be a Florida State and Clemson. Florida State and Clemson are going to be very, very hard to deny. I mean, again, going back to what Mr. Williams said, going back to what everybody has said over the last couple of years, Florida State is an enormous brand. But the report today that there was Big Ten instigating expansion, we are reporting that that is not accurate from our standpoint. Now, again, Warchant is a replica. They have a great reputation. They're talking to people. Great. But because there is a reason why I feel so strong about what I'm reporting tonight, because all the same sources that we've been nailing and drilling these stories left and right over the last 10 years are telling me it ain't happening. It ain't happening. It ain't happening. Truth to be told here is that the Big Ten's appetite for expansion right now isn't all that great. Not to the point where they're goading a school into being a member of their conference. The Big Ten knows, they know this. Again, we're not shutting the door on anything here. They know they're very interested in North Carolina, but they know that they're behind the 8 ball in North Carolina for so many different reasons. The internal politics at North Carolina, the Board of Regents at North Carolina, the Board of Governors in the state of North Carolina, the boosters at North Carolina being ESPN. There is multiple reasons. Mike Gusowich left, went to Michigan State. There are multiple reasons why the Big Ten is behind the 8 ball, and they know it. It doesn't mean they're just going to give up, but they know it. They need to see the North Carolina piece evaporate, to be eliminated. They need to see that domino fall either this way or that way. When Pete Thamel reports, when he reported that North Carolina was the number one target for the Big Ten and the SEC, if you take out Notre Dame, he was accurate. So was Heather Dinich. So was Dennis Dodd. So was Brett McMurphy. They all were. Again, not a shot at Clemson. Not a shot at Miami. Not a shot at Florida State. But it is the North Carolina that if there's any instigating going on right now, it is North Carolina that's being goaded to try to figure out what they need to figure out with the Board of Governors. That piece has to fall first or together with Florida State. I'm going to repeat that. That North Carolina piece has to fall first or together with Florida State if Florida State's going to be part of the first movement. And I'm saying this like, I don't know how more clear. So if I end up being wrong, it's going to be very obvious. There is no hedging here. But we're not looking at a future, in my humble belief, we're not looking at a future of the Big Ten taking Florida State and Miami first without the North Carolina piece being resolved. We're not looking at a future of Georgia Tech and Florida State going to the Big Ten until the North Carolina piece has been resolved. We're not looking at a potential Duke and Stanford going to the Big Ten until the North Carolina piece has been resolved. I'm going to get to your comments. I'm going to get to your phone calls. And you can let me have it with everything you got. But on Monday, March 24th, every time we put the stake in the ground, every time I say I'll take the big L if this does not come up to be true, this is what we do here at Peek Around the Corner. Been doing this a long time, and it was an emphatic no, it ain't happening. There is no goading of Florida State right now. Is Florida State talking with everybody? Is they talking? Are they having communications with Big Ten and SEC? Yes. So is just about everybody that's not in the P2. But there is no movement forward on Big Ten expansion with Florida State, with Clemson, with Georgia Tech, with Miami. Not on March 24th. It's that North Carolina piece that's got to get resolved. And here is the other reason why it has to get resolved. It's another reason why it has to get resolved. Because once the North Carolina piece gets resolved, that beyond the other North Carolina schools, obviously, that has the largest impact on Notre Dame. If North Carolina, that piece, if they go to the SEC or the Big Ten, once that happens, it's not an if, it's a when. It's not an if, it's a when North Carolina goes to the Big Ten and the SEC. That has the biggest impact on Notre Dame, and that is what the Big Ten is looking at. If it's the SEC taking North Carolina, the phone calls are going to be hot between the Big Ten and Notre Dame. If the Big Ten takes North Carolina, the phone calls are going to be hot between the Big Ten and Notre Dame. The North Carolina piece has to get resolved first. Nobody is being goaded except for North Carolina and whoever their attachment would be for the SEC and the Big Ten. And it is the edge, in our opinion, the SEC holds a lot of the cards in that battle. Let me go to the chat. Thank you for the donations. Appreciate it. Heartbreak 25. Penn State's men's wrestling now has won 12 natties in 15 years. Thanks for not picking them on Saturday. Oh my goodness. That was a shot. That was an absolute shot. Thank you, Heartbreak25. Thank you for the super chat. Thank you for your generosity. I do appreciate it. Big Gun Shop. Can we post links in chats? I don't even know. Can you post a link in the chat? I haven't seen really anybody do that in my chat room. Thank you for the super chat, Big Gun Shop. Go ahead and give it a try. I don't even know. Anthony Carlson, 10 gifted memberships. Wow. Wow, Mr. Sparty. He got his Big Ten men's hockey tournament championship. They are the number 1 seed in Toledo's region. The Spartans. Okay, let me see who got those. I didn't even see who got those memberships. For those who got those 10 gifted memberships, please say thank you to Mr. Anthony Carlson. And all of you are knighted, cloak, and dagger. Thank you, Anthony Carlson. I do appreciate it so very much. David Ferguson. Thank you, Anthony. I appreciate your incredible generosity. David Ferguson. Greg, what you are not seeing is the power of the media network. ESPN got the ACC conference members to agree to an ACC deal. Vice versa. Fox will get the Big Ten conference member to agree to this TV deal. Okay? I'm just saying those schools that are going to be voting for it, they've got to be sold. Are we better off 5 or 6 years from now? What is the talk of all this Super League? Super League. What is going to happen to Northwestern in a Super League? Is Florida State, is Clemson, and these other ACC schools that are looking to jump to the Big Ten, are they going to have Northwestern's back? They make sure that Northwestern is part of this Super League if that ever happens? Again, there has got to be some trust. The relationships have got to be built. This is real politique, man. This is where it gets serious. And I'm not scared to say it. Look, Florida State, Clemson, they've got work to do on this. A lot of work to do. Convince Northwestern that don't have this well, it doesn't matter what Northwestern president says. Look, I know Warchant is just a Florida State website. A great site. But don't let that get into the ether. Don't let that get through the bloodstream. Don't let that be part of the message. These universities, if they're going to vote for expansion, they have got to be convinced that they're going to be better off 5, 6, 7 years from now than they are today. By grabbing a Clemson, by grabbing a Florida State, by grabbing a Miami, a Georgia Tech, a Duke, a Stanford. You got to convince them. Before, in the last 4 or 5 conference realignment waves, it was easy. Penn State, of course. Nebraska, look at that big fan base. Rutgers and Maryland, Delaney had to do more arm twisting, but it worked. Getting the city of Los Angeles, of course. Oregon and Washington took a lot of work. But you got to convince these presidents that they are better off. And if people are going to be throwing up this unequal revenue sharing or throwing up this Super League, and maybe Northwestern is going to be left behind, or maybe Purdue is going to be left behind, why would they vote for more expansion? They have got to be better. They got to be convinced that they're better off. Florida State did not do favors with some of the things they've done over the past. Yeah, thank you, Anthony. I appreciate it so very much. Stop worrying about unequal payout with Florida State and the Big Ten and the SEC. I don't know. I mean, why wouldn't they worry about it? Why wouldn't the schools in the SEC and the Big Ten why would they not worry about it? They're not interested in expanding the conference so money can be taken away from them. There's got to be trust. There's got to be security. Look, Becky, go Huskies. Go back to Becky, go Huskies. Washington comes in at a half freight to the Big Ten. And what Washington is getting back in return is knowing in the next media rounds that they're going to make as much as anybody else's. Period. They're going to be a fully invested member in the Big Ten Network. They're going to get top dollar. They're going to be a Big Ten member for many decades. They're not going to be left behind. This is why Washington took the deal. Now, is somebody going to tell Washington they're going to make a little bit less money than a Florida State in 2031 because of viewership numbers, some chart? You're going to tell Washington after they're taking half freight for 5? No, it's not going to work. I'm talking real politics. I'm talking real here, man. I'm talking real. You're not going to be able to just to walk in and say, look how great we are. Oh, by the way, we're going to be making more than 90% of you in the next 4 years. Washington said, we'll take half. We'll take less than a lot of you that were worth more than, because we trust we're going to have the security and the growth, and we're coming on into the Big Ten. Do you think the Big Ten presidents have changed their way of thinking since they've invited Oregon and Washington to the next conference realignment? Do you think they've done that much of a big change in how they think? Really? Smoked badger with cheese. Yeah, and then Warchant used Tony Altimore's chart. I mean, Tony Altimore from the school of what? Wharton School of getting everything wrong and never admitting that he got everything wrong. That Tony Altimore, you're using that chart, good luck with you. Wow. And here's another thing, and I'll get to your phone calls. Ryan Thomas, Evil Badger with cheese curds on the side. Thank you for the super chat. Appreciate it. Becky, go Huskies. Chances in Washington, Oregon says yes, no, and they're getting half shares. And Florida gets a full share. I doubt it. Yeah, no one's coming in at full share unless Notre Dame is part of it. But I think Washington and Oregon would be more interested in the next media right. Like, Washington and Oregon are going to make damn sure they're going to make as much as anybody else in their next media rights deal. And they're going to. And then, and I've said this before, and I got to say it again, because I get it. You all are college football fans. You all are college football fans. You're college football sickles, right? So it's natural to look at everything through what is the best football program out there, the most valuable one. And I get it. NBC. People are making comments about NBC. Fox. Yes, there would be great interest in Florida State because they bring the eyeballs. They bring the advertisers. Absolutely. They need a blend. They need somebody else to come with them that would help scratch the backs of the other things that need to be checked off. A Northwestern, a Rutgers, a Wisconsin, a Minnesota. The academic, the research. Florida State is an emerging research university. But again, Warchant today talked about how Nebraska is not a problem anymore. They're talking about Nebraska is not a... Well, ask Nebraska. Maybe the people of Warchant don't know this, but it's Nebraska that fears for its future in the Big Ten. I happen to think they should not have any fear. But it is Nebraska that fears that they're going to be left out of the Big Ten because they have flatline on research. That there's a growing gap between Nebraska and everybody else. And 20 years from now, it's going to be too obvious that Nebraska is not a Big Ten university. It is President Carter, when he was the president of Nebraska, who talked about this issue. And then Alberts, the athletic director, and then the interim president. Steve Sipple has reported on this. McEwen has reported on this in Nebraska. It's Nebraska. President Carter is not the president of Nebraska anymore. He's the president of Ohio State. And Ohio State, for the first time ever, they're calling the shots on this next realignment. They acquiesced. They did not vote for Oregon and Washington. Ohio State wanted Stanford. So the next time that somebody says academics, research, it doesn't matter what the Northwestern president says, it's almost, I get it, I gotta, some people are never going to understand. So you've got to convince President Carter of Ohio State. Because they acquiesced it. That was part of the deal. We reported on it at the time. So Florida State's got to convince Ohio State. Miami's got to convince Ohio State. Duke has got to convince Ohio State. Georgia Tech's got to convince Ohio State. Virginia's got to convince Ohio State. North Carolina's got to convince Ohio State. Never before that has been the case, by the way. It's always been, there's factions, there's a Wisconsin-Michigan faction. That has never been the case. So you got to convince a president who has been given warning shots in Nebraska that you've got to be more like everybody else. The President Carter of Nebraska at that time says, you got to be more like Northwestern. So your message, Florida State, I've been honest with you every single day throughout this whole thing. Do not have the message that you do not care what a Northwestern president says or thinks about your university. My God, that could not be more from the truth. Period. And if this is the only YouTube channel that has got the gonads to say it that clear, then by God, that's how it has to be. You got to talk to Carter. You got to talk to Northwestern. You got to talk to Wisconsin. You got to talk to Michigan. Okay, we are going to take, thank you for the super chat, Becky. We're opening up the phone lines right now. Let me know how wrong I got it. 763-260-1333. 763-260-1333. Kerry Gold knows Mr. Seminole. Everyone got the Florida State Clemson versus ACC wrong as well. Agree to disagree. Thank you for the super chat, Kerry Gold knows. I appreciate it. Hold on.
Call from
Rick.
Rick, can you hold on for 1 second, please?
Sure.
I appreciate it. Kerry Gold knows, thank you once again for your super chat and everything. Yeah, I thought it was going to be between 200 and 240 million, and it was 165. And it's 165 this year. Absolutely. Florida State Clemson. They won. Massive victory. Massive victory. Thank you for the super chat. Rick, go ahead, sir. The floor is yours.
Hey, thanks, Greg. I've got two questions for you.
You got it.
The first is, there's been a lot of talk that if you take North Carolina, you have to take North Carolina State as well.
I don't believe in that, but go ahead.
So, sorry, you don't believe that they're linked, or you don't believe the Big Ten would take?
I don't believe they're linked at the hip. I do think that North Carolina State has to get taken care of. Their athletic department cannot slide off the cliff. In a couple of different ways they can be taken care of, but I don't think they're tied at the hip. Nope, I do not.
Gotcha. And how about Virginia and Virginia Tech?
I don't think they're going to be tied at the hip either, but it's going to be a political battle, right? I mean, it is. Let's be honest. Politicians,
right,
they're going to get involved in this. North Carolina, Virginia. So I'm speculating. I'm guessing that eventually, if Virginia has an opportunity to get to a P2, that politically, that they would allow that to happen. But I truly do not believe that North Carolina and North Carolina State are tied at the hip.
Gotcha. Well, and second question for you. The Big Ten is obviously essentially founded on research, and research is so important to all the schools in the conference and the conference overall. Now that the current administration has cut so much of the research budget and threatened to eliminate pieces of it, how do you think that impacts realignment?
I don't think it will impact. I don't think it will impact it at all. But you're right. I mean, the current administration, there's cuts going on. It's going to hurt the big research universities across this country right now. But I don't think it's going to affect it. Look, even if you could make me believe in the argument that conference affiliation has absolutely no effect in future collaborations and research between universities, even if you could get me to agree to that, there is still this how can I say it? This elitist elitist culture of these presidents looking out for themselves, wanting to rub shoulders with the correct people in their minds, trying to get that next job, outside of academics, back into some private research, whatever it is, they're all trying to rub elbows with each other. And that's always going to be a big influence in some particular parts of realignment waves. In that, essentially the Big Ten. And somewhat in the SEC.
Gotcha. Thanks so much.
You got it. Appreciate it. Great call. look, you know,
Call from
Ryan Thomas.
Ryan, can you just hold on for 1 second, please?
Sure.
I appreciate it. I just want to say, look, a lot of people a lot of people disagree, right? A lot of people disagree. Morris Simmons, Warchant was not the only source reporting Florida State and Big Ten. Well, give me more of these sources. Send it to my DM. Look, guys, how do I say this? There is Ryan Thomas. I appreciate your patience. Just give me a minute here.
Go ahead, Greg.
I get, look, there's a reason why we do have this YouTube channel, and it is for moments like this. Okay? And I am way open. I am open, transparent, authentic. You can rake me over the coals. I'm going to take the big L. I'm open on this, guys. Just like all these other things that I've been, like, when I said that ESPN's going to pick up the option, Florida State was not going to send their withdrawal notice before August 15th. All these things, stories big and small. When I come out and I said clear as day what we believe is going to happen, we got a hit rate like nobody other. Nobody other has our hit rate. The reason why we came out on June 15th of last year and said that Clemson and Florida State were not the number one targets of the Big Ten and the SEC it wasn't because we were told by one person or two. We had this thing. We said it. We had this thing. The people opened the doors to us, and we looked in. We were able to look in and say, "Oh, wait a second." So we reported on June 15th. We got raked over the coals for 6 weeks. And then thank God the Brett McMurphy article came out, because then he got raked over the coals. But then I got the pressure was completely off me. But it isn't just him. It wasn't just me. It was everybody. We all had the story. Well, guess what? The same sources and people who told me about when we went out live June 15th are the same people talking about March 24th. They're the same people who told me that Florida State and Clemson was not filing their notice of withdrawal. I could go on and on and on. So, we're not infallible. If we're wrong, unlike a lot of people out there, I'm actually going to take the L. I'll come out here and say, if we get news in the next month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, that Florida State and Big Ten are engaging in serious talks for Florida State to become a member of the Big Ten, I'll say 6 months. You know what? You can have the rest of the 2025 calendar. If it comes out, then I'll come up here and take the big L. But I gotta tell you what I am being told by the most serious people in the Big Ten. The ones who told me when we did on September 9th, and I said the Big Ten is doing a radical thing. September 9th, live show 2024, I came on here and said the Big Ten ain't going for 3 automatic qualifiers. They're going for 4. And I got blasted all over the place by the same morons out there. And then 2 weeks later, ESPN came out with the damn report. So we're giving you the peek. We do not think there's this instigation that is happening. Ryan Thomas, thank you for your patience. The floor is yours.
Oh, it's great, Greg. I'm just eating leftover smoked badger from Saturday. So I mean, with cheese curds on the side, not on the badger, on the side.
Well, those evil Badgers won the women's hockey national championship. Congratulations to the Wisconsin Badgers. Job well done once again.
Well, there's always a silver lining behind every cloud, Greg. But I want to point something out here. First of all, Becky, Miss Washington Husky, is just making outstanding comments in the comment section. I mean, those of you that read Becky, she has probably one of the best pulses on UW that you'll ever find, and I would take what she says serious, folks.
Absolutely.
She's got some good insight. She's got some good insight there. I think it's important to realize that talks with the Big Ten doesn't mean the votes are there, and it doesn't mean it's necessarily with the office. I mean, it very well could be that Florida State is trying to talk to those who are its allies or friendly voices
Absolutely.
in the Big Ten and trying to build support for it. It doesn't mean it's a done deal.
Yep.
But they're going to do that, and they should do that because if the SEC knows that FSU doesn't have options, FSU is going to get lowballed. So FSU needs to absolutely do whatever it can to make itself desirable.
Absolutely.
In order to get itself the best deal it can for itself. That's just common sense.
Let me just interrupt. I know you're rocking and rolling.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Greg.
The key word, and I know you're going to answer this, and I know you're on your way here, but the key word that Warchant used, in which I'm responding to, is Big Ten instigating. That is, if you watch it, they said it a million times. Big Ten instigating. That is what I'm responding to. Everything you said is absolutely correct. Florida State's talking with the Big Ten, SEC. Everybody is. Go ahead, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, but that's a situation where people can take one thing and assume that one party's instigating when it's not. I mean, this is a situation where you can have a kernel of truth that people start reading more into, Greg, than actually is. And that happens all the time with message boards because they don't have people who are on the inside necessarily that can give them all the details. I mean, they might assume the Big Ten is instigating when it may just be that, Florida State's making calls, or there may be one party in the Big Ten that's trying to, not the office itself, but a school that may be supportive that's trying to build support of it. I mean, it can be misconstrued a whole bunch of different ways. So people just have to be careful in this situation because there's going to be a lot of politicking going on right now. I mean, we all know that. There's going to be politicking within the Big Ten. There's going to be politicking within the SEC. There's going to be politicking within state governments. There's no shortage of daggers. The cloaks are all at the cleaner, Greg. I mean, the cloaks are also all bloody, that they're all at the PATC corner cleaner right now. So it's dagger-only action right now. So I think that people just have to keep in mind that this is going to be a fluid situation. They shouldn't get their underwear in a bundle and freak out about things. But this is just going to be something that's going to ebb and flow, and it's a developing story. Nothing, I don't think anything in realignment right now, Greg, is a fait accompli. I don't think anything right now is set in stone, done deal. I think there's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of different ways that things can materialize, and there's a lot of competing interests. And I can tell you right now, let's say the SEC picks up Florida State, Clemson, North Carolina, and Virginia. How palatable does independence become for Notre Dame at that point?
Name the four schools again.
UNC, Virginia, Clemson, and FSU. How palatable does independence become for Notre Dame?
I think that is the one. I think that is the one scenario that, or a scenario similar to that one that takes Notre Dame away from independence. I don't think because I don't know what they would do with their other sports. I don't think they would. I mean, even the North Carolina piece itself. If they leave first, which that's what we think is going to happen here at Peek Around the Corner, it pulls a thread, and and it may be Florida State goes with North Carolina or whoever, right? But the North Carolina piece goes first. I think at that point Notre Dame goes, oh boy. So that is why the Big Ten is not going to act. They're not. It's about North Carolina, what happens in North Carolina, And then how does that affect Notre Dame? And then the Big Ten's got that next level of interest in Florida State, Clemson, Miami, Georgia. You know what I'm saying? They have to get through the first couple pieces. And everybody, except for, I guess, Warchant, but everybody else, everybody that I talked to and these reporters and everything, they're all being told the exact same thing. But maybe Warchant's got a source. Maybe it's Petiti themselves. I do not know. But go ahead, sir.
I can tell you right now, number 1 and 2 for the Big Ten right now, if they can get them together, is Notre Dame and Stanford, period. They would love to be able to do that and have 4 or 5 team regional pods that they could do all sorts of things schedule-wise, and have all that Stanford research money connections and have Notre Dame in there. I mean, that would ideally, the Big Ten would love that. If they could get Stanford and Notre Dame and stop at 20, they would be as happy as a clam. And it may happen. So I just think that a lot of things, the Big Ten, they have good reason to be patient, because if the SEC does grab UNC and Florida State or some more valuable brands in the ACC and makes independence a little less palatable for Notre Dame.
Yeah.
I mean, that plays right. I mean, that plays right into the Big Ten's hands. It really does.
Yeah.
And, I mean, they know that, and I think they have every reason in the world to be patient and not to rush anything. I think
that is the consensus. There are people with different views, obviously, but that is what the chatter behind the curtain have been told for at least the last 18 months. So
yeah, well, I'll stop Big Ten splaining to the Big Ten guy right now, because I'm an idiot that knows.
No, that's okay. That's all right.
But anyway, great show, Greg.
All
Thanks
right.
for being on late, my friend. Thank you, everyone, for your comments, and everybody have a good night.
Appreciate it. Thank you so very much. Great call. Thank you for everybody joining us. I do appreciate everybody joining us. I appreciate the disagreements, the conversations we're having. Kerry Gold knows. Well, hold on one second.
Call from
Sam, can you hold on one moment, please?
I sure can, Greg.
Okay, it's gonna take a minute here. I gotta do something here. I gotta clean something up. I want to get to Kerry Gold Knowles' comment. Okay, hold on one second here.
It's all good, Greg. Thanks.
Okay. What am I doing? One second. Late night. Thank you, everybody, for joining us on a late Monday night. College football's peek around the corner. If you're new to the channel, if you haven't done so yet, please hit subscribe. Smash the like button if you like our content. If you do not like our content, because I'm yelling too much, whatever, please hit the thumbs down button and then let me know in the chat how we can better satisfy you as a PATC family member. First of all, I want to get to Kerry Gold Knows. Gene Williams, owner of Warchant, is a lawyer and has connections. No question about it. And I like him, and I like Warchant, and I've watched it. I watch a lot of, especially during the season, I like to watch a little bit of the response of a lot of, I do a lot of 5-minute watching. 5 minutes of this, 5 minutes of that. Penn State this, Miami that. I go through it all, and I think Warchant does a great job. I really love Jeff Cameron, and when he's on with Williams and the other guy, no question about it. And look, maybe he's got the right source here. Maybe he's got the right information. Maybe it's going to be found out that Florida State, that Big Ten is instigating expansion. And then I'll be on here taking the big L. Big loss. The biggest one, really the only big one ever if this happens on this particular show. But having said that, Gene Williams did say a couple things that kind of made me go, the Northwestern shot, I hope he doesn't seriously believe that, because, or I hope Florida State they don't seriously believe. They've got to make sure that Northwestern's on board, that Wisconsin's on board. You can't just go in there and say football viewership's the only thing that matters. It's the only thing. I mean, wow, just don't do that. First of all, it ain't true. Second of all, you're not gonna get into votes. And when he took a shot at Brett McMurphy about something that Brett McMurphy did not say in that article, so he's a little loosey-goosey on those two items. But I think he did a great job overall. I was very informational. And when they talked about the economic value that a Florida State would bring to the Big Ten or the SEC, and when they talked about how the SEC don't want the Big Ten to come into Tallahassee and grab the Florida State, all that is incredibly convincing, real good stuff. I just did not agree with all of it. Go ahead, caller. The floor is yours. Thank you for your patience.
Yeah, Greg, first-time caller. Been watching your show for the past 2.5 years. Enjoyed it a lot.
Thank you.
But
Appreciate
I just
it.
wanted to clarify. This is Sam. I just wanted to clarify. When I was saying, don't worry about Florida State and unequal pay if they join the Big Ten or the Southeast Conference. A whole point with the ACC is the money we're getting now would not allow us to compete at the level we want to compete at.
Mm-hmm.
The money we would get in the Big Ten and the Southeastern Conference would get us there, and then some. We wouldn't know what to do with all the money. Florida State has been known to do more with less and gotten awards for that. I have a unique perspective. My dad's from down here, and he was well connected, and my mom was from a Ohio State grad. So I'm a Big Ten person as well, and I appreciate the Big Ten. But my point is, half the people that move to Florida are Big Ten people.
Yeah.
So getting a team or two in Florida, I say too, I think Miami should come along too. That would be great. Sort of like USC and UCLA. But there's just so many Big Ten people down here anyway, and it would give an opportunity to come see a game or two every year. So I just wanted to give a call and clarify that. And also one other point with Becky, she's a great caller, great source of information. What I've been hearing, though, is NBC's not too happy with the ratings because we're not getting the first game like Fox gets the first game.
Mm-hmm.
If they were to get a Florida State or Miami, there would be more first games or top-tier games for them to get. So they would probably be willing to add a little bit more money sooner. So Washington would maybe get more money sooner. And that's just the point I want to bring up. Thanks for the time.
Yep. You brought up a lot of great points. I'll answer you off air. Sam, thanks for calling. Please call again. Beautiful phone call.
Thanks, Greg. Bye.
Excellent. Look, Sam did a great job. Sam did a great job, and he is correct. He is correct. I mean, a Florida State-Miami blend, I happen to think works. I've said that before because it's going to scratch enough backs. Everything Sam said is correct.
Call from
Becky, go Huskies.
Becky, can you hold on for just a moment, please?
Sure can.
I do appreciate it so very much. I'm wondering if I got my... Geez, I hope I didn't screw something up here. Okay. First of all, Sam, I agree with... I agree with everything Sam said. I think there are quite a few candidates out there that the Big Ten can benefit from a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. But I'm talking. What I guess what I am trying trying to be clear on is there is a dominoes to this. There is. And there is politics involved in this. So the first pieces have got to be solved before we get to Florida State. And I know a lot of people are saying, well, Florida State's the top piece. And that's where we have the disagreement, I think, between myself and many Seminole fans. Or me and Mr. Williams, or me or whatever. Remember, when Paul Feinbaum says that Florida State has no value, Big Ten and the SEC, what did I say? I think Paul Feinbaum is incorrect. Remember? I just went after Paul Feinbaum again. So it isn't like I don't think, but there is a certain dominoes to this, and there always is in conference realignment. Always. Just to take the last one, the Big Ten took USC, UCLA, but then they had to wait. The legal counsel said you cannot bludgeon the Pac-12 again unless the Big 12 can poach. And I reported that on day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4. Becky is on the line. She was an incredible resource and person that we talked back and forth every single day for months. And we said, the Washington and Oregon are going to become Big Ten members within the next 5 months or in the next 5 years. And if it's going to happen in the next 5 months, these are the things that need to happen. Kevin Warren needs to leave, and the Big 12 is going to have to poach, and they did. And so Washington and Oregon were the third and fourth domino pieces. That's not a shot against Washington and Oregon. They're more valuable than half of the conferences. They're both more valuable than Minnesota. But I was speaking the truth. They were the next wave. They were the next domino pieces. Everything that I'm being told, the same people who told me about Washington, Oregon, and USC, and Colorado, all these stories, the same exact, and it's a lot, and they're the same ones that are saying Florida State, yeah, they're big, and of course they're valuable, but that they're not on the line that's being dealt with right now. The line that's being dealt right now is North Carolina and whoever they're connected to, whoever they're being connected with, and then of course Notre Dame off to the side, and then it gets to the Florida State. So I'm just trying to be clear on that. And if I end up being wrong, holy smokes, we're going to have a great show where all you guys are going to just crush me for really the first time ever. But I thought it was important to do this show tonight because Warchant did a great job putting out what they believe they are hearing. But man, I had to come out and say this because I had 100%. The people that I talk with say, no, that ain't happening. No, that ain't happening. Becky, go Huskies. Thank you for your patience. The floor is yours.
Well, here's the thing, and I think people need to know this. Florida State may not be talking to the conference. They could be talking to individual schools, which I know they have.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Florida State, they're all talking with each other. Yep.
Yeah. I said a few months ago that they had reached out to Washington, and Washington basically was like, we have no relationship with you. You're not AAU. But, we get it. Now, I can't say much on what Washington thinks now because they're getting a new school president out here, former Illinois president. So,
oh, yeah.
Which I think he's still in Illinois. But yeah, it's a situation where things have to be put in place. The motion has to be made. And I think the impatience of people that it can happen overnight is crazy. I mean, Washington and Oregon took a year. That took a year.
They had meetings in Washington, D.C. and New York City before Colorado. Yeah, it took months. Yeah.
I mean, when Colorado left, they picked up the phone, and the Big Ten was like, yeah, let's talk.
And that's when the deal started getting cut, because if people want to know, that was a Friday. Washington and Oregon. Washington's Board of Regents met Thursday night, the day before they announced they were leaving. That's how it took 6 days to get that completely done, but it took a year to get the framework. So I'm just saying, like, no, Florida State to leave would have to pay. I mean, it would be stupid to pay $165 million right now. It'd just be stupid. They can save the money and pay less next year, right?
Yeah.
And still get the same end. I think for them, it's just they need, the Big Ten's not accepted anybody in AAU without AAU, and I don't know. I think since my mom was a child, my parents, and my grandfather probably was at Minnesota, but they're just, that's how it works. Like, things have to be in place, and they're probably going to need, like I said it in the chat, I said they'd be smart to wait and get the power to bid up with the media partner to bring them in. Like, this is your dollar amount. This is your dollar amount. And have the two schools go, well, this is what ESPN's offering, and this is what Fox is offering. So you can go back and forth and kind of get more money for the other. 16,
Okay. And other people have said that in this chat as well, and people on Twitter, All Knowles, a great Twitter account, Florida State Twitter account, mentioned that. Get a bidding war. Again, if I'm wrong, I'll take the big L on this, guys and gals.
Oh, yeah,
but I don't think there's gonna be any bids from the Big Ten right now. So what I'm trying to say is, to instigate, to bid, to goad Florida State or Clemson or Miami or whatever, I don't think any of that. I'm being told none of that is happening, because you don't goad somebody, you don't bid on somebody until the biggest domino goes first, and that's North Carolina. It really is, guys. I mean, I got to tell you, there is a reason why every single national reporter has told you that. There's a reason why I went out and got smashed by almost everybody when I said it on June 15th. I mean, it is the number. And we don't know where that is going. I mean, the Big Ten ain't going to give up like just, okay, SC. That's not what's going on. So there is, to me, the word instigating or goading or bidding on, or I don't think any of that is happening, because they got to figure out what happens in North Carolina first with whoever North Carolina is going to go with, and then check with Notre Dame, and then it's the next dominoes, and a big one is Florida State. That's what I'm saying. That's what I believe. I don't think there's even a bidding war going on. I don't think any of that's happening between the Big Ten and anybody, except for maybe North Carolina.
Right.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think you're dead right there. I say that because I know that when Florida State reached out, they were told no by Washington. They were basically like, hey, what's it going to take to get your vote? And they were like, nothing. We're not even going to listen to it right now. And that seems to be the consensus of Wisconsin, of Ohio State, of Penn State, of Michigan. They're just like, we're cool right now.
Yeah.
But you have essentially 12 no's if they came and said today, hey, we left the ACC, can we join? They'd have to change the ideas 12 other schools. And like you said, I think they're going to wait for a North Carolina or a UVA.
They're going to wait to see what happens. They're going to see, and then they're going to wait on the effect of a North Carolina, Virginia going to the SEC, or North Carolina in a whatever, North Carolina plus whatever.
Yeah.
See what effect that has. Yeah.
So
And
Notre Dame has the contract with NBC.
Yeah.
Notre Dame's not leaving for a conference while they still have a path to the playoff, which we all know the SEC is going to Sankey, I don't know, he has a soft spot for Notre Dame. I don't know what it is, but he will ensure it happens, probably because he wants to keep them out of the Big Ten. But then the other aspect is they're not going to join a conference unless they have no TV contract. So you'd essentially have to hope what people are saying ESPN would do for Florida State, NBC would do for Notre Dame. And they're not happy with the Big Ten right now. Like, I think specifically it was Ohio State and Michigan, because they have some clause or something like that.
Yeah.
So they can't do certain games after a certain date in, I think October or November. I can't remember what it was. But, yeah. It's just the big fish isn't Florida State for the Big Ten because they're not AAU and they're not a research school.
Well, they are an emerging research school.
They are, but they're not on the level of a UVA, a Stanford, a Cal.
No, they're not. But they're more of a research university than Nebraska and Oregon. So.
By a mile.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll be honest. Oregon got in because, they're Oregon and they have Nike money.
They had Washington. Oregon had Washington.
Washington was their backer. I mean, it was originally supposedly Washington and Stanford potentially, and that was balked at.
Becky, I'm going to get more callers.
No, you're good. I'm sorry, I'm rambling, but
no problem.
I wanted to say that, and
you're a legendary caller.
Hopefully, first caller, long time, not caller.
Yeah.
All right. Bye, guys.
Legendary caller, Becky, go Huskies. Beautiful. Becky, go Huskies.
From
Larry the Jam.
Larry the Jam, can you hold on for one moment, please?
Yes, sir.
I appreciate it. Kerry Gold knows. Greg Gene Williams said he thinks Florida State is out no later than 2027. Thank you for the super chat. Yeah, he said he believes 25. Florida State plays in the ACC this year. Florida State plays in the ACC in 2026. And then the following year, they will not be in the ACC. And he believes the Big Ten. I love that he went out there. I love that he didn't hedge, right? I give him a lot of credit. And I thought it was a very thoughtful show. I disagreed with a couple things, and that's why we're having the live show tonight. Thank you, Kerry Golnose, for the super chat. Very much appreciate it once again. Thank you for helping us keep the lights on here. Very late show. Appreciate it. Go ahead, Larry the GM, Mr. Longhorn.
So, Greg, I had a feeling you were going to do a show today.
Well, you know what?
Waiting for it.
You know what?
I'm waiting for it all day.
The little general has been in Mexico for the last 3 weeks. Picked her up at the airport at 7:30 this evening Central Time. So I could not, so the whole day has been getting Maria home and everything. So this was the only time I could do a show. And I said to Maria, she's been gone for 3 weeks. She wants to talk with me. She brought presents home from Mexico City. And I got to explain to Maria, look, there's this Warchant, and they're talking about this, and I need to say that because look at my phone. I got all these messages, these email messages, because she knows some of my people that I talk with. Anyway, so, I'm going, I got to come on tonight. She goes, okay, go ahead. Go ahead, Larry the Jim.
Well, Greg, you just need to do a better job of explaining your personal life so we can all calibrate to your schedule so we're just all aligned with you. We need more of Greg. I'm just kidding.
Got it.
Greg.
Yeah.
Greg, I think the issue here is there's been a common theme relative to people assuming that talks are happening that well, this is like the 7th time in the last 2 years you said no. Those kind of talks are not happening. And
no.
I think what's happening...
Wait. Time out. They were not happening. They were not happening. But they can happen now.
Right.
They can happen
right.
now. I just don't think there's a Big Ten instigation of expansion towards Florida State right now. In fact, I'm pretty sure it's not happening. That's what I'm trying to say. But go ahead.
Right. Yeah. And so I think the key thing in this whole report. Now, Greg, I'm like an hour, like 50 minutes behind. I've tried to catch up, and so you might have already said this. I think the whole key thing in this is, what does the two words Big Ten mean in the sentence? The Big Ten is instigating. Who in the Big Ten is instigating?
Great question. When I hear Mr. Williams or anybody says the Big Ten is instigating expansion talks with Florida State, that means Tony Petitti has gotten the okay from presidents to instigate expansion talks with Florida State.
That's what you and I think. That's what you and I think it means.
Yeah.
I think it could mean the same big money people that were having talks with Duke are like, and people are thinking, well, these big money people, they have all the connections in the Big Ten. And Greg, that's not entirely false, but that's different than saying the Big Ten is doing something. Greg, I'm 100% in line with you, but I think that's where I think people are getting they're getting off the rails.
Sure. I think Florida State is doing all they can. They're talking with people. I've had live shows talking about Duke's big money people are talking. Yes, Florida State is talking with people. No question about it. Very powerful brand talking with people. But when it's Big Ten instigating expansion talks with Florida State, okay, let me drill down a little bit further. Why I am being so strong on this. When the report is the Big Ten is instigating expansion talks with Florida State, that means Tony Petitti, in my mind, that report is Tony Petitti's gotten the okay from presidents to instigate expansion talks with Florida State. And I'm here to tell you, I'm going to be blunt, because who knows, right? Who knows what tomorrow brings? I'm going to be blunt. No hedging. As clear as I can be. Big Ten presidents have not given Tony Petitti the ability to instigate expansion talks with Florida State at this time. No way in hell, because we know that. Because there's enough president. It's not happening. That's why I am being like this about it. Go ahead.
There's some legal reasons they wouldn't be doing that, right, Greg?
Beyond the legal no. I'm not even going to use the legal argument, because maybe legally they can right now, or maybe they have to wait another 2 weeks. Maybe they have to wait another 6 weeks. But because of the ACC settlement, we're in the world in which they can have first-party talks. So I'm not even using that. I'm not using the legal argument anymore. That has been pushed aside. The argument I'm using is, they're not instigating anybody that isn't named North Carolina or Notre Dame on March 24th, 2025. At this point, it ain't happening.
But Greg, if I'm a Big Ten money guy, right?
Sure, I might be talking.
I might be talking to. I might have been talking to the Duke big money guys.
Yes.
And I'm like, well, okay, well, that sounds kind of good. But then I could be going to Florida State and saying, hey, we've had these talks with Duke, and I think you guys really need to get your ducks in a row, and I think you really should be pushing harder to get. You guys need to really be pushing ahead, because you might get behind in the line. Like, take the dots, Greg. Mm-hmm. You might get behind the Duke in this if you don't get your ducks in a row. You might lose your place in line, and that could be construed as, hey, the Big Ten people are goading Florida State into into action.
And if Mr. Williams, if that's what he means by it, then he can be. Then I would agree that my reporting would line up with his reporting. But because he said a number of times Big Ten is instigating, I got to tell you. Now, Sam, who had a great phone call earlier, said, Greg, Big Ten putting in the work. We're talking about 2027, not tomorrow. And again, I do understand that argument. But when you use the word instigating means the Big Ten is instigating. They want to push forward with expansion with Florida State. At this time, they're not going to provoke, instigate, urge, go forward on expansion because the North Carolina piece might go the Big Ten way, and then maybe Notre Dame might go their way, and that might include. You have to start at the biggest domino. Right. Big Ten ain't going to. Big Ten, they're not going to lead a Florida State on and say, "Well, okay, let's talk. Okay, we're interested. They're going to. Look, Florida State and Big Ten and Florida State have talked. There's no question about it. They were doing third-party talks. We talked about it. In fact, Florida State knew that they were not one of the top targets. They knew that. Michael Alford knew that. When he was interviewed by Brett McMurphy, he knew that. There was no pushback on McMurphy's, no pushback on Pete Thamel, no pushback on anybody's reporting. The Florida State knows where they sit. A very good spot, but they're not being like the Big Ten. The Big Ten don't have Florida State lassoed, and they're bringing them in and talking and saying, "Hey, come on now, we can do this. We can have." They're not doing that yet with Florida State, not yet, because there are other pieces other things have to get solved first. That is my
right. But Greg,
go ahead.
Right, you and I are 100% aligned. But where I think people are getting tripped up is, big money people associated with Big Ten schools may be alerting big money people at Florida State or even officials at Florida State. Hey, if you guys really want in, you want us to really consider you in the Big Ten, you got to be doing more, and that could be construed as what was being reported. But Greg, I think that's what I wanted to explore with you.
Yeah.
Words mean things, Greg, and you are responding to the words, and you're defining the way I believe should be defined. I'll say this also. People are being very declarative in their statements about, well, so and so wants this, so and so. Hey, guys, let's ease up on. Let's use more words like, "Hey, I think," and because there's a whole lot of people making statements that sound like they know more than I believe most people do. Right? I trust your sources, right? And when you give those declarative statements, I trust those declarative statements. But there's a lot of people making declarative statements that I don't think really should be practicing in that art right now. So, Ray, I just wanted to explore, like, what does the two words Big Ten mean? Because I think that's where there may be some confusion in all this. So thank you for letting me on. And Greg, as always, I just really appreciate what you do and giving me the time to talk to you.
You got it. I appreciate it, Mr. Longhorn. Thank you, sir. Again, though, I happen to like what Warchant did today. I like that Mr. Williams was clear in what he believes, what his sources are telling him.
Call from
Replica.
Replica is on the line. The floor is yours.
How's it going, Greg?
I'm doing good. How are you doing, Mr. Longhorn?
Doing all right.
So far, my way too early prediction order of finish for 2025. I did SEC. I did the Big 12. I got your Longhorns winning the SEC, and I got the Arizona State Sun Devils winning the Big 12. So the Longhorns going to win the SEC. Arch Manning, Wisner. You've got Colin Simmons rushing from the edge. What do you think, sir? Are you pumped?
Yeah, I'm excited to see the new talent kind of break in. It's kind of like a new iteration, and it's going to be like fully like stars guys. It's like no holdovers from like the previous coaching staff. So I'm excited to see what they can do. But can I give a prediction in the SEC before I get into this ACC stuff?
You got it, buddy. Yep.
I think Georgia, Alabama, and LSU are going to miss the playoffs this year. I think
Georgia, Alabama, and LSU?
Yes. Let's start with LSU. I think Kelly's on the hot seat. I just think that pressure is going to be a lot of pressure. They're going to be relying on a lot of young players to come in and contribute, and I don't think it's going to work out for them. Alabama, you already know how I feel about that. I think Kellen DeBoer is in over his head, and they don't have a quarterback, don't have a defense. They really just have Ryan Williams. So in Georgia, I think this is the year where they kind of take a step back. You just can't get away with doing this, having the same patterns and not having consequences. You look at like their players and their off the field troubles. Like, at what point are people going to hold Kirby Smart responsible for the things his players have been doing? This isn't like an isolated incident. It's been going on pretty much from the moment he got there. So they don't have a quarterback either, and I don't really trust him to kind of put together an offense that can be a playoff contender. So that's my bold prediction with that. And as far as this ACC stuff, people need to understand that realignment is not being driven by the same factors in the previous waves. That Texas and Oklahoma to the SEC move set off an arms race, and it was really nobody really saw it coming outside of the guy who reported it. Like, they kept that completely under wraps, and it changed. This is fresh off the playoff negotiations, the alliance, all that stuff.
Yes.
It really changed like the course of the sport and what people's motivations were. And we're at a point now where they don't have to prioritize those things because they already have the football brands. Like, you look at when the Big Ten fully gets going, because I say this multiple times, like, they got a lot of teams in transition. Once those teams come out of transition, they're going to be really strong from a brand perspective. When you can have Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, USC, Oregon, Washington, and even the middle of the pack, Big Ten teams have more opportunity than they ever have before. So, and same thing with the SEC, like that. Yeah. That move pretty much set them up. So they're chasing other things. Like, that's hard for schools like fans of like Florida State and Clemson to kind of understand, because they've seen football and viewership and things of that nature drive these moves, and that's not the case it's not the case anymore. And when you said the other day that they weren't going to add another Nebraska, that just kind of confirmed what I've been thinking this whole time, that they're not going past 20 unless Notre Dame is involved, because they don't have to. And you don't want to get into a situation where you, like, people think this realignment is the club. You just stand outside, and if you wait long enough, you eventually get in. Like, that's not how it works. And I don't see the Big Ten adding 6 more schools so they can take away opportunities from Illinois and Indiana and Purdue and Maryland. Like, I just don't see that. And I don't see them adding a school that isn't like-minded simply because they don't have to. Remember, this is part of the reason why the PAC-16, that first Super Conference, never happened, because what's the guy's name? Not Ed Scott, but Larry Scott, I believe.
Yeah.
Larry Scott and those Pac-12 presidents and chancellors, they didn't want those land-grant schools like Tech and Oklahoma State
Yeah.
and A&M in that conference. Like they did not view them as peers, and I don't think they view Florida State and Clemson as peers, and I don't know if there's anything they can do within 5 years to change that. And that's not a disrespect to those schools. It's just a reality. You don't just make up like decades of history and culture and a way of doing things over a 5-year period. So, in my opinion, I think Florida State and Clemson are more likely to be in a reconstituted conference outside of the Big Ten than to be a member of the Big Ten. Now, I do think they'll eventually get into the SEC on behalf of ESPN, but the terms aren't going to be that favorable simply because I don't see what they can do over the next 5 years to kind of change what's in motion right now. Like these two conferences, they're after academics and political influence and students and territory, and in particular for the SEC, they want schools who can bring all this stuff and also lose their football. Because it's not a lot of breathing space in the SEC right now as far as teams who feel like they should be competing at the top and as far as teams who can actually be at the top. So, and if you just look at history, you look at when the Big 12, when that super conference fell through and they got the unequal revenue sharing, it wasn't Texas and Oklahoma that left first. It was the schools underneath them who felt like they were in a position where if they waited, they were going to get left behind. That's why Colorado voted for the Pac-12. I think that was a mistake.
Yeah.
That's why I think Missouri voted for the SEC, even though they're not. Like, I don't view them as the SEC school, but they're there.
Yeah.
They feel like they needed to go.
Yeah.
So I think the first domino is going to be I think it's North Carolina, and I think they're going to take care of Virginia simply because of the relationship, and then we'll see if there are any other renegades in the ACC who are making their own plans. But yeah, history suggests that Florida State and Clemson may be in the ACC for a little while, and we'll see what shakes.
All righty, man. Beautiful call, Replica.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I appreciate you joining us on a very late Monday evening or morning, depending on where you are in the country. Replica, Mr. Longhorn.
I thought this was like a breaking bombshell, and I saw it on your Twitter. I was like, wow, this is really going down right now. And then I saw it watching. I was like, oh, man.
Yeah. All right, sir. Appreciate it.
Have a good one.
You too. I do appreciate everybody joining us for this late night Monday show, live show. Did not advertise it all that well. Again, had to pick up the little general at the airport. She's been gone for 3 weeks. 3 weeks she's been gone. So, vacationing, taking her mother to her hometown of Veracruz. And she just got here, and then I had to tell her, oh boy, I got to do a live show. And she let me go on. So I appreciate it, honey. Thank you so very much. I also want to take a big shout out to Mr. George Foreman. Rest in paradise, George Foreman. Heavyweight champion of the world. I grew up on boxing. I grew up and watching boxing in the 70s. I was a young boy. My grandfather Roney, Irishman, should have been Rooney, but they forgot one of the O's when they came over from Ireland. He was a big boxing fan. Every time he came into the house, he put up a fist like this to me, and then he gave me a quarter. Very quiet man, very quiet Irishman. Watch George Foreman. Watch Joe Frazier. Watch George Foreman and Muhammad Ali. Watch George Foreman later on defeat Michael Moore. We were at my Uncle Gene's house in Brooklyn Park, Minnesota. We were all gathered. We watched George Foreman defeat Michael Moore. Became the oldest heavyweight champion ever. It used to be Jersey Joe Walcott, and then it became George Foreman. George Foreman became an entrepreneur, preacher, a life well led. George Foreman, heavyweight champion of the world. You're in a much better place. I was a big, huge admirer of you, George. So until next time we see you, it will be forever. No question about that. I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. Again, I wanted to have a clear message, a clear report to you all tonight, March 24th. It differs from Warchant reporting. And guess what? That is okay. It is. It's okay. But I'm also going to say this before I go off the air. Boy, I would be shocked. I would be absolutely shocked if the Big Ten is instigating, goading any expansion with anybody right now, if it's not North Carolina or Notre Dame. Right now, March 24th. Now, I might be saying something different 4 months from now, 6 months, but right now, yeah, Big Ten's got to figure out where they sit with North Carolina, with the Virginia, with a Notre Dame. If it moves Notre Dame, if North Carolina, Virginia goes to this, they've got to figure all that stuff out. Is the Big Ten talking with Florida State in some way, somehow? Of course they are. Along with Georgia Tech, along with Duke, along with Miami, along with Notre Dame. Always talking with Notre Dame. But instigating expansion, our reporting is different than Warchant, and again, that's okay, and it's okay if you all disagree with me, and if I end up being wrong on this one, I'll take the big L, but I don't think you should be looking forward to that. I don't think it's going to happen. We shall see. We shall see. Stick with us here. College football's peek around the corner as we head into the later parts of this week, March 24th, as we head into April, as we head into April 7th. House versus NCAA settlement. A lot of dramatic things are going to be going on here in the spring. And we're going to get more of these reports. Right? We're going to get more of these Warchant reports. We're going to get something out of here, something out of there. And I will respond to all these reports. And I might have, of course, I'm going to have reports on my own. And we'll see how this goes. Buckle up. Brace for impact. Until next time. From all of us at PATC to all of you, please, you all take great care of each other. Thank you so very much.